renting right now is about as tough as it gets. Students, I've got two kids. One's in university. The other one said, I'm going to take a year off. They thought it was going to be easy to rent, and it has been anything but. So let us talk with Devell Morrison, broker with Bosley Real Estate, the pride of Thornlea. Devell, good morning.
Thanks. Thanks for the Thornlea shout out. That was funny.
That's what we got to do. Devell, let's talk about this because it's the story that just doesn't seem to be going away. We need rental properties. How are we going to get this done?
Yeah, we really do need rental properties. And it's almost like the government needs to get out of the way because they're really impeding a lot more building out there. And I think a lot of those NIMBYers are also impeding a lot of that building that could be going on out there.
I sit back and when I talk to my kids about it, I'm like, all right, you're going to have to budget for this. You're going to have to budget for that. And I don't think I've processed it as a parent that these young generation guys and girls that are coming into this world who I remember when I started renting, I lived with two or three of my friends and we all divided it by three and tried to get through it. Even when you do it with that, the number is still too high. So with all the restrictions, with all of the challenges, what would you say to this young generation that's trying to start on their own?
Well, you might not like what I have to say, Rob.
Yeah.
What I'm going to tell you is there's this thing out there called the Bank of Mom and Dad. And so what I've seen a lot of parents do is buy a house in whatever university town their kids are going to, and they put their kid up, and then they get the other kids to rent from them in that same house. They've got their kid as a property manager on site, but they buy them a house to live in. So you might not like my answer, Rob.
Well, I just think that's that might be great for, what are we talking, 10%, 15% of, the people that can afford to just go out and get that. I think the problem that I'm facing here, Devell, is, we need a surge in rental construction. Doug Ford said we were going to get this, and I'm not here to pile on the Ford administration here, but you talked about getting out of our own way. I heard a rumor that the number of renting households is expected to rise by 58% in the next decade, but yet I don't see that trending in the right direction.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I mean, interest rates rising to the point that they have certainly hasn't helped. People forget that in order to get that rental housing, someone needs to build it. It's going to be a developer that needs to build it. And so that developer is dealing with the fact that interest rates are also very high. So homeowners are dealing with the fact that interest rates are high, but so is that developer. How are they going to finance these buildings to build them when their payments are so high? How are they going to finance that building when their supply costs, their labor costs are so high? So you kind of have like this problem stacked upon another. And then you have the not in my backyard NIMBY groups who say that they're not against housing, but really they're against housing. So, every time you see one of those ratepayers, that NIMBY group, they gang up with their counselor and they essentially try to stop a building from being built in their neighborhood. That is all costing renters in the future a huge problem. I was just reading a story recently about someone in Midtown Toronto who was trying to build a triplex and got so much resistance from the neighbors because, oh my God, renters are going to live next door to me. That's ridiculous. And so I would say that we are a huge problem because you've got snobby people that think they're too good to have renters living next door. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's funny. I used to live in a building where we had to have the grandfather clause because they decided they didn't want any renters. So the only way that you could have a renter is if you were grandfathered in with the new strata. Are stratas a part of the problem?
Actually, no. The condo boards don't have an issue with renters. You would see most of the buildings right now, they're being bought by investors, and those investors are turning those units into rental units. So, condo corporations don't have an issue with renters. In fact, most of the buildings in Toronto, I would say 30 to 40 to 50% of the units are renters versus owners. Everybody gets along as long as everybody can value the property the same way, right? So you don't want renters in the building that just don't care for the building. But other than that, condo corporations have no issues with renters in the building. Everybody's the same. really.
But that's always been the age-old challenge, right? Is you've got the owners who, obviously quote unquote care, and the renters that just kind of show and go. But that's a stigma more than anything, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's lots of renters who have pride of ownership and care about their place, right? So, it's that whole idea of like, okay, we can't pigeonhole everybody into a certain category. Although I guess a lot of what I've said is I've tried to pigeonhole NIMBYers. But anyways, some of the renters, they care about their place as well too. So it's not just that. So condo boards are fine. I would say, one of the biggest issues is the city of Toronto in terms of their building department and issuing permits and the length it takes to build. If a developer wants to build a rental building or even a condo building for that matter, they're looking at it takes 10 years. By the time they acquire the land, the time it takes to, get all the reports from all the different consultants into the city of Toronto, into their permit planning, it takes them so long just to get those permits in place, just to be able to build. And then they've got to finance it. So unless we're willing to take a hardcore look, I think, at our, building and planning offices in the city of Toronto to speed things up, and until we decide, hey, you know what, we actually want rental housing, and so therefore maybe we shouldn't make it so costly, we're going to be stuck in this same cycle. I mean, if you look at the development charges that the city of Toronto takes from each unit that's built. And so when I say each unit, whether you are a builder is building a condo unit or a rental unit, the city is still taking a lot of money. So if you think about the fact that we're going to use $1 million just for the simple math, if a developer is building $1 million condo, the city, well, not just the city of Toronto, but all levels of government, because of all the taxes and the development charges, the park levies, the education fees, they are taking approximately 25% of that $1 million condo. That money goes to the government. So you're saying that now $250,000 goes to the government on a $1 million condo. And people talk about affordable housing. Do you think that condo might be a little bit more affordable at $750 versus $1 million?
Oh, Deval, I'm sorry we have to end this conversation. I got 1,000 more questions now. This is not how it's supposed to go.
Well,
let's do this again, shall we?
Absolutely. Please have me back. I can answer more questions for you.
Yeah, we can. I'm leaving with more challenges than answers. Thank you, Deval. It was a pleasure to meet you this morning. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Deval Morrison, broker with Bosley Real Estate.